Hello and happy Labor Day weekend. I am sorry about bothering you guys on Labor Day weekend, but not that much because I'm guessing you're not going to watch this until after tomorrow anyway. So I only feel a little bit bad. I'm also sorry it's a little bit late. I actually planned to record and post earlier in the weekend, and somehow it just completely got away from me. So I hope your weekend is lasting longer than mine feels like it has. Okay, so a number of things as we begin. First of all, it was super, super nice to meet you all in your videos. I love watching those. I love watching you be as awkward as me in some cases. In others, you're all super natural and have no problem speaking to that camera, and it's great. But most importantly, it's really nice learning a little something about you guys. Um, that's one of the drawbacks of the online class. As much as I love it, it's really mm, a little bit harder for us to connect, but it's definitely not impossible, and that's partly why I do all of these annoying videos. And I'll ask you to do some too because it's nice to see your faces. Having said that, little reminder about staying in contact with me. If you ever have questions, please, please, please don't hesitate to email me or text me or come by and see me in my office. I'm there all the time. I'm happy to see that, and I like meeting you face to face whenever possible, if you're on campus, obviously. But with anything else, please, if you're ever confused, or something doesn't look right, it probably I may have messed it up, so please don't hesitate to ask me. Or maybe you're just having a hard time uncovering it. But I appreciate when people let me know because if you're having a problem, then someone else may be as well. Okay, so back to all the good stuff. Okay, so now we're getting ready. We get to dig in. It was nice, really nice looking at your introductory pieces. Honestly, as a rule, I'm not a huge fan of the pre-semester, which is actually just like the baseline writing sample. But I like what we're doing now, and it gives me a really good sense of who you are and of, um, where you're coming at in terms of your knowledge and experience in some cases with building arguments and integrating some outside research. So I was very pleased, or I have been very pleased with what I've seen so far. I'm still getting back some of those. You'll see some feedback on them. Brightspace just installed over the summer this tool new tool where I'm allowed to or able to respond on your drafts inside the box. Now, before I always downloaded them and then marked them up with track changes and then re-uploaded them, which is probably what I'll do for your bigger papers, just so I have a little more control over the markup on them. But I'm not hating this at all, what they've given us. So it's given me a chance to write inside the box, and then I'll add some comments in the comment box. So make sure you take a look at those as they come through. But anyway, very pleased with what I'm seeing so far. Your writing skills seem to be very, very much in place for what they need to be at this point. So um, that's encouraging and that's exciting. And I know it wasn't the most exciting thing to write about, but I do find it interesting. I mean, the use of technology, since we're taking an online class, seems to be pretty important. And that's just obviously one very tiny facet of a much larger conversation. Okay. Having said that, now what we're going to do as we begin moving into this first week, obviously it's a class about argument, and you're going to watch and listen and write a lot about argument as we encounter it, not on the informal level, but not on the fully formal level. If you've taken an ethics class where you've had to do syllogisms and break things down, we're not going to go quite that deep, but we are going to look at some of the more formal constructions as they pertain to argument, because in academic argument, of course, you have to know how to adequately, effectively build your argument and bring in some outside voices to bolster your own. So we're going to work on that, obviously, the entirety of the semester. So we're going to start on the other side of it, and that is examining other people's arguments, because it will help us as we grow into our own writing, arguing selves. Okay, so gives you a little bit of perspective. And one of the most important things we can do, of course, is learn to analyze what other people are doing. So when we learn how to pull apart someone else's strategies, we learn also then how to shape our own. So to start with this week, we're going to look at um, a number of arguments. Okay, and these are, I mean, they're a little bit older, but I like them. I like the way they're constructed. And by older, within the last year, but I kind of like the content and I like the construction of them. You're looking primarily at the construction. Okay, so I've given you a link to something that's called PAPL, a PAPL analysis sheet. And essentially, what this is, it's a guide that you're going to use throughout as both a reader of argument and as a writer of argument. It's a very simple 5-step way to really break down an argument. Okay, so you begin with purpose. So what? Why did the writer give us this particular argument? What gave rise to this? You don't just randomly start arguing about something unless, of course, there's a warrant for it. There's some reason for it. And then that author should have a point, a purpose, a thesis, or a claim. You can hear this these words kind of used interchangeably. So, what is the writer's purpose? What does he want you as a reader to walk away thinking or believing? The next, the A in the PAPL, is the audience. And this is incredibly important, okay? Audience plays a crucial role in everything. For whom are you writing? Who do you want to convince? You don't want to just preach to the proverbial choir, right? So if you're speaking to a general audience, how are you going to get people to know and understand? Or how does the writer get people to know and understand? If you're writing to an audience that already knows a little something, you can obviously design your argument a little differently, right? If they already have so much background information. If you're writing to someone with whom you're very familiar, all right, you're gonna pull some different strings when you try to convince them of an argument, right? If I know my husband, and I think I do, I know his soft spots. I know how to get to him. I don't know if I know how his mind works, I'm not gonna lie, but I know sort of how his mind works sometimes. So you kind of know those ins and outs. If you're writing to an audience that's larger, more general, then you can't really take anything for granted, and you have to be mindful of those things. So audience, for whom is something written? How do you figure out who the audience is? Where was the article published? It's not always just what it's about. I might read an article about high school kids and using too much technology. That doesn't mean it's written for them to read. It might, in fact, be written for their parents. And if it's published somewhere where I know the parents will have access to it, then I'm going to assume that, yeah, that's probably targeting parents of teens, for example, parents of high school students. So think logically as you work through that, right? The audience is not just who something's about, it's someone who needs to hear what is being discussed. That can be determined by looking at the publication. If it's in the New York Times, who do you think's reading it? What do you know about readers of the New York Times? All right, if it's in an academic journal, who's reading those academic journals? I don't have one sitting, I don't see one sitting in my dentist's office. So where will you read this, or where would people read this? So think a little bit about the audience, because that inevitably affects the nature of the rest of the piece, the language and the structure of the logic and the development of the supports. Okay. The next P is closely tied to the audience, and this is presentation. How's it written? Is it sarcasm? Is it formal? Is it academic? Is it informal? Is it a blog? How's it been designed? How's this argument being delivered? Is it a TED Talk? Okay, we're all very familiar with TED Talks. Is it a John Oliver piece? Is it a spoof that appeared on Saturday Night Live? I don't know. That's important though, because that delivery is obviously going to be part of the audience's reception of it. Okay, how we accept that argument is very dependent on its construction and delivery. The E, this is really, really important, and I posted a video on this, not by me, so you're lucky it's someone else. But the evidence, okay? You can't make an argument if you don't have any evidence. Evidence, the E becomes the rhetorical appeals in this case, all right? So we think about ethos and pathos and logos. Watch the video and you know what those mean. But basically, the credibility of the author. How does the author build his or her credibility? The emotional appeals, if those are being used. Most importantly, the logic. Does it make sense? Okay, you can't just say something because you want it to be true. I mean, we do that sometimes. It just doesn't make for a logical argument. And ideally, a strong argument will have pieces of all of these. All right, emotional appeals are of course the least often they're the most effective, but they're the least worthy in terms of argument because we can persuade people based on emotions very well, but we don't want to rely exclusively on that. Instead, think about using your pathos appeals to emotion more to build a bridge between you and the reader, right? We're all humans. We communicate. We want that contact, and we want to know that someone knows or cares about us and about we want to know why this matters to us. So it's critical in creating that relationship. But most importantly is building your credibility as an author and making sure that you're creating a logical argument. When you're building credibility, and you're going to watch this, but building credibility can come in a lot of ways. And since you're student writers or college students writing papers or creating other arguments, which we will get to do, building your credibility requires you to do a number of things. Number one, you have to use language and style and be strong in your presentation. But you also have to pull from credible sources. So where you get your information is going to obviously matter. If you say that, oh yeah, well, it was on Facebook. Okay, wait, that's what my generation says. Oh, okay, wait, it was on Twitter. It must be true. Oh, come on, you can dig a whole heck of a lot deeper than that. I know how good you are at researching things that matter to you, meaning like, oh my God, I just met this guy, and now you go check out his Instagram and you check out his Twitter, but you don't stop there because then you check out who's tagged him in other pictures on Instagram, and oh, wait a second, who's that girl he's standing with there? Is that an ex-girlfriend? Is it there? And then you also check out her Instagram, and then you check out your ability to research far exceeds mine, okay? So I know you've got it in you. You just have to do the same sort of digging about matters relevant to academic argument, which is where we're going. The L, language, presentation. Ooh, I love words. I love language so much. And it's so strong and it's so powerful. And how you say something and how you structure it, that's key. So that's what you want to look at, that PAPL, each of those pieces. And I'm going to give you the opportunity to do that. The first assignment that we start with, you're going to look at all of those articles, and I want you to do close readings of them, which means take notes, read like a writer, read like an arguer. Wow, how does he open this piece? Why does he open it that way? Everything is contrived, okay? Nothing is arbitrary. So what is the impact of that? Not just what's there. I don't want just a summary, but why? Why did that author do that? Or what was the impact of that particular phrase? Who's the audience of that? How do you know? Is the writer speaking directly to the audience? What does the writer assume about the reader of this piece? Really dig in. So you're going to annotate each of those closely for yourselves and not collecting those. You'll need to do that. Then ultimately you're going to decide on one that you want to have a little more conversation on, and you'll be posting that on the discussion board. Okay, so you'll choose, I have them broken down into the articles that I've given you. So say that you're looking at the article on Trump shooting someone on Fifth Avenue. Okay, so if that's what you're looking at, then inside that module, you're going to engage in some conversation. You're going to hit some of those high points, not whether you agree or disagree. I don't care if you agree or disagree with the author's position. I want to know, what did that author do? How did he do it? What kinds of strategies are at work? All right, this is what you're doing. It's a critical analysis. It's a rhetorical analysis. Go to the rhetorical analysis module. Take a look at the suggestions that I give you in there. They're very important. I'll talk a lot more about them. I'm about to run out of time. I can't believe I talked this long. I'm so sorry. YouTube only lets me upload 15 minutes. I can't even imagine why. Take a look at that module. Work your way through it. I've also posted a hot topic, and I'll have one of these every week. And basically, it's the conversation that we would have if we were sitting together every day or a couple days a week. And I think it's a wonderful place for us to get some conversation going. As you begin to do that, this first one, I'm turning it open to you, whatever's on your mind. Maybe you're just enraged with something in our government, or maybe you're just outraged by something socially or something in your community. A couple of paragraphs if you want to get credit for that. Then you have to respond to your peers. Okay? The point is not to just put it out there and leave it, but to get some conversation going. I'm out of time. Have a great, safe last official day of summer, and I'll be in touch. Bye.